Welcome to today's research-informed defensive lesson here at Active Self-Protection. Every single day of the year, we post an analysis of a real-life use of force caught on camera. In fact, we are the only channel on earth doing research-informed analysis of defensive use of force. I am your host, expert witness John Correa.
I'm your co-host, Neil Widener.
Lucky Gunner is my recommended trusted provider of freedom seeds for range or defensive use. In-stock, good prices, and rocket-fast shipping are why I go back again and again. Because of new guidelines, I can't link their site or say it, but you're smart and you can find it with a simple Google search. Stick it to the man by paying them a visit today.
I don't know where this one is from, but you see this mom getting her kids out of the car and two dudes roll up on the moto, one with a gun on the back of the moto, and she's gonna scream and holler a little bit. Well, her husband, who's inside on the right, he pokes his nose out with a gun and puts several bullets in the guy in the yellow helmet who was the rider. But the guy who had the gun, he kind of runs off a little bit. So now you see mom think about running in the house. Then she's going to gather up one of the children. Dad goes off camera. Don't get to see what happened to him there. So going to get the littler one inside the house. The bigger one closes the door like, no, I'm going to stay in here. And then dad's like, no, son, you need to get the heck out of there. So he's going to jump out too. And mom is going to run in the house. Okay, fine. After she gets her purse. I would not worry about the purse too much right now. So watch what happens now. He's kind of trying to figure out what he's going to do. Our defender is, and then watch, he's going to get a bad case of the flinchies here. So I don't know if our robber takes a shot back at him or what, but he can't get in the door. My guess is mom closed the door. She finally opens the door and lets him in. And it seems like he gets away. I don't have a news story on this one because I couldn't figure out where it's from. So if you have any news or anything like that, put it in the comments for me, would you? Hey, did you know who actually built the Active Self-Protection app? Well, that was a bunch of developers. But you know whose idea it was? It was this guy's. So listen, if you're watching this on YouTube, we're grateful for you and we are glad that you're here. But for everybody in the app, we're really up and involved in that. And you're the one that drives all of the exclusive content in the app.
Yeah, you know, that's one of the big things that we're working on is to get more and more exclusive content. Right now, we've got some live streams that we're doing on a fairly regular basis. We've got another month or season of the React Ripple coming out here real quick, and that's all live. Plus, we're starting to have some, some daily lessons that are only in the app. They don't show up on YouTube, and that's for our subscribers as a thank you.
So thank you so much to those of you who are in the app, and for those of you who are on YouTube, we're grateful for you too. Oh, Neil, I remember having young children so much, like I know you do now with your young grandchildren too. And getting kids in the house can be such a pain, but you got to remember you are in a transitional space here. So you got to pay attention to your world.
You do, because that's when the bad guys are looking to, exploit your attention being somewhere else to get what they want, whether it's, to take that car or get money or the purse or whatever it is that they can get. They're going to wait till you're not focused on them to make their move. And that's what we saw here. Luckily for us, dad was in the house already and they didn't, they didn't take into account dad was going to come out and fight.
I also think there's a point here that mom should be armed too. I know plenty of ladies are like, oh, that's my husband's job and he carries a gun and if somebody needs to get shot, he'll do it. But that was kind of lucky that he came back to the front door. And so mom, if she was armed herself, and it's more prevalent than ever that women are getting into firearms, she could have handled this problem herself, Neil.
Yeah, we see that all the time. And we see both sides of it. I think more and more women are arming themselves and getting training and spending time on the range, learning what to do and how to do it and how to be effective with it. And had she had something on her, it would have been way, way, way better for her. And the thing that I always tell folks is I'm like, listen, if you go everywhere you go with your husband that carries, then I guess I can understand that. But I strongly encourage you to at least explore the idea of carrying. And again, that's a very personal decision that you have to make on your own. And so I'm not telling every lady out there you must go arm yourself, but I really think that you should consider it. You should spend a little bit of time on the range, spend a little bit of time behind the trigger and get a feel for it and see that maybe it is for you. And your kids' lives, you can die for them all day long, but once you're dead, it's over. And so if somebody shows up with a gun and threatens you, what's going to happen to those kids once you're gone? That's the question that you have to answer.
Well, and if you treat your husband like a personal security detail, fine. If you're the personal security detail and your wife is not armed, send her in the house. You should be the one outside. You should be the one getting the kids in. You should be the one who stays in the transitional space, not you go in to, I don't know, fire up and see what the score of the Monday Night Football game is or whatever. I'm not sure why he went inside. I'm not giving him a hard time for it. I'm saying, if you're the armed one, stay outside where the kids are, stay outside where the danger is, and let mom go inside. Because I think this did put him at risk. Now, that said, he does hear what's coming, what's going on, and he comes a running. Then I'm pretty sure here, Neil, that what happens is he comes out and issues a challenge, issues a command. Now, we see him here finally get a shot in these guys, but notice that our bad guy, both have turned and looked at him. So I think that he issued him a challenge. And quite frankly, they're pointing a gun at your wife. I would not have issued them a challenge. That gives them an opportunity to get in the fight, and I would have shot them both in the back. And this highlights that it's not about where you shoot someone, it's about why.
Oh man, I have this conversation in the comments on the regular about, well, you can't shoot somebody in the back. You can absolutely shoot somebody in the back if they're threatening someone else. It's not, like John just said, it's not where, it's why. And in this case, I mean, issuing that command, which I agree with you. I think that's what he did just based on the way that both their heads flipped around. Then the gun comes your way, and if you're the only one with a gun to defend yourselves and your family, you just risked, taking a shot yourself out of, from the bad guys. So potentially, I'm with you, John. I think you walk out, you recognize what's going on, get your gun in the fight. The thing that he did was he shot the driver, and it was the passenger that had the gun. I would have liked to have seen him shoot the passenger, the one that had the gun out at the time. However, you got to think backstops, and maybe that's what Dad was considered was, my kids are right behind that other guy, so if I miss, it's going to go through the car into them. That's just me completely guessing what he was thinking about angles there, but potentially that's why he took the driver out first instead of the guy with the gun.
Yeah, and we don't get to see that. Depth perception on 2D video is pretty miserable, quite frankly. So see him here, though, when he puts that shot in that guy, now he's got to go and notice that our perp is still pointing a gun at him. The guy that's got the gun is still pointing a gun at him. So this is why we generally say handle the biggest threat first, that you want to put that shot in him, which is why also I wouldn't have issued a challenge, because I got his head turned around, and now we're in a kind of a 50-50 scenario where it's first to get, fastest hit wins. Whereas if you hadn't have issued the challenge, you might have shut his computer off and he never have been aware of you, and then you could have dealt with the other guy. So I'm not saying to assassinate people by any means and only deal with deadly threats in this manner, for sure, but recognize that he had the real drop on these guys, and he kind of gave it up, and it was pretty dangerous doing that.
Yeah, it really does. And what it takes into play or brings to mind for me here is the fluidity of each one of these scenarios that we break down. Every one is its own scenario. Every one is its own situation. And so for us to say, there's one answer for this, and on this other video, you said that, in this particular instance, that's why we do this. So you can get that mental rep and get a feel for, in a scenario like this, I need to take action quickly versus, if they were just out there messing with his car and had a gun out, then why would you even go out there? You know what I mean? And so I think that's the beauty of the lessons that we teach. And again, I would have rather seen him just go to work and take out the threat as quickly as possible and then deal with the second guy. Odds are the second guy is just going to drive off on his bike. But he's at least less of a threat.
I love what you said there, Neil. Every situation is unique and very fact dependent. I said recently on one out of Waddell, Arizona, guys stealing a car, and I said, don't go out there and have a gunfight. Well, here you've got your wife and 2 children out there. It's a vastly different thing. You must go out there and have a gunfight. I don't care what else is going on, because your wife and children's lives are at stake. So now, absolutely, you go out and have a gunfight because lives are at stake here, not property. So those fact differences mean everything in what the best idea is and what our tactics, our techniques, and our procedures are. So recognize that, right? We don't use deadly force to protect property, but here life is at risk. They're not just saying, give me your stuff. They're threatening your life to give you the stuff. Now, he got combat effective hits. Dude went over. Okay, fine. He laid down and briefly regretted his life choices. Now, Dad has to come out and he starts dealing with the kids and getting people out of the car. I really think it bears talking about here, Neil. And as you're a guy who has a high special needs son. You've got young grandbabies. So I think everyone in the family needs to know their job in an emergency. And if you are the armed self-defender and you're the one that's going to deal with a deadly threat, then your spouse needs to know they are the one in charge of getting the children to safety and don't mess with you and don't make you do it.
Exactly, John. And again, I don't want to harp on this guy too much because he won the day, right? However, I think a lot of things went in his favor that he could have done differently. And so for those of us watching, let's honor this sacrifice and figure out how potentially we can do this different. Have a conversation with your significant other that says, hey, if I'm the one with the gun out in the middle of a gunfight, then you are the one to get the kids out of there. I'm not going to turn around and open up doors. I'm not going to turn around and turn my back on a threat. I am going to deal with the threat as best that I possibly can. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I want this guy to go hunt the bad guy down. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. Don't hear that. But take up a position with your gun in the fight so that if that bad guy does come back, as you know, very rarely do we see honor amongst thieves, right? A lot of times you shoot one bad guy, the rest of them scurry and they don't come back. But every now and again we do. And so if maybe those two were brothers and that's his family, that's the bad guy that's laying there, maybe other brothers coming back to get his brother out of that danger zone or whatever the case may be. So don't go looking for a fight, but be prepared for the fight to come back. And you know, when he turns his back to grab a door and open it up and get kids out there, that's what mom could have done very, very easily. And I think that mom was probably in a bit of a panic as well. So again, I understand that. But if you have that mental rep beforehand that says, hey, if something goes down, you get the kids into the house. And then once the kids are in the house, I'm following you. And again, we'll get to that next part here in a minute. But I really would have liked to seen him kind of post up there and be ready for the fight to come back, because it looks like it kind of did to some degree.
And if I think mom and dad could have communicated, if they just had a little bit of plan ahead of time, right? You deal with the kids, and when you're exiting in or entering into the house, right? Exiting the problem into the house, holler at me, car clear, right? Or we're in, then I will follow you immediately. We'll lock the door. I'll barricade on the door. You'll call the authorities, whatever. And having that plan, okay, fine, because he's kind of standing around wondering what to do here. Let's remember our follow-up acronym, right? So the fight and after the fight, we talk about TAP ifs. TAP is the fight. Is the threat down? Did I hit him? Do I need to shoot him again? A, is he have any accomplices that I need to deal with? Those are both big deals here. P, is my partner in the fight? Are they fighting somebody I need to deal with? Then once that's done, TAP is the fight. Then ifs is the follow-up. Injuries. Am I injured? Is my wife injured? Are my children injured? First F, firearm. Is my firearm in working order? Do I need to do anything to it? Then follow-up. What do I need to do right now? What is important now? How do I win? What's important now? What's important now for me to do to make myself safer? And then S, seek help. Call it in, get the cavalry on the way. And when I'm sitting there looking for it instead, Neil, man, I got problems, and that gave mom enough time to lock the door, and he ends up bumping his noggin on it.
Yeah, that was, I mean, it was a little bit comical, but yet kind of scary because, you know, he flinched. And I think what we both think might have happened there is, you know, bad guy with the gun flung one at him. And that was kind of a fibs moment for him of, hey, I've got to get out of Dodge and turn, you know, and it just feels like he hadn't really ever put any thought into what's going to happen. I've got this gun out. What am I going to do? And, you know, so now we see him kind of scurrying back and forth and around and not knowing what to do and keeping himself in danger. So what I would like to do is have folks have that conversation with their family that it's if something goes down, we are going to get out of Dodge. Please don't lock me out of the house if that happens. But you know, at the end of the day, these guys did a good job. They covered their ass, and everybody got to get up the next morning and go back to work.